All right, here we go. Wednesday, December 3rd, getting towards the end of the year here. Welcome to another Watercooler Wednesday. I'm joined as always by Dwayne Gibbs. Dwayne, what's going on, my man?
Well, how's it going? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Well,
There's
a
a lot.
rare occasion that I don't feel well. And
Mm.
so I picked up a little something. So we canceled our plans to go down south and I stayed home. I didn't want to get my mom sick or anything like that. So no, I stayed home and rested and got over whatever bug it was, and that was that. So we didn't do a real big celebration at all, But it was the for the greater good, if you will.
Yeah, good rest is always helpful for the mind.
Yeah, yeah, and I just I thought of getting my mom sick and stuff like that. I was like, that's not worth it because we're going down in Christmas,
Oh,
So
good.
we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see her again shortly. But yeah, I was sorry. I was running a little late today. I got my morning workout, and for those of you who follow me on YouTube or Facebook, social media, I do a tip of the day, and a lot of times I do that while I'm on my morning walk, as I was doing this morning. And I got caught up. I walk by a lot of times by the golf course here, called the Winter Park Nine. It's a par three course and it's like one of the highest rated in the country. It's a pretty cool little course. It's right in the almost in the downtown area of Winter Park, and they had a tournament going on today, so I knew a couple of the guys there. So as they were waiting to start, I was chatting it up, and I was like, "Oh, geez, I gotta get, I gotta get going, man." I had
Have fun.
had a hoof at home to get here
Yeah,
on time. So,
yeah.
but good times. I did a little tip of the day. Speaking of tip of the day, I did one yesterday as I was going to the bank. And as you know, but to share with the listeners, with my elite clients, I am an active participant. I put money in deals with them. So I was going to the bank, which is the bank that holds escrow for Paper Stack. So I went over there with two checks and did a little tip of the day over there because we're funding two deals. So we just got two closed. We got two more deals funded, and I've got two more on the docket here right now that are going to be funded within a couple of days here. And I think I got one or two more on Paper Stack, two more on Paper Stack that we're closing on. So busy month, and I had mentioned to everybody towards the end of the year you find a little rush of inventory. And the reason for that is you've got some note traders, if you will, that have funds and things like that want to, settle their books for the year. A lot of them have to pay back investors and things like that. So they want to cash out on some of these assets. And what you have to be careful for is sometimes they want to dump assets that have been holding them back. You got to be
Mm.
careful for those. But you also can find really good deals that they normally wouldn't want to sell because they're good performing notes, but they have to sell them because they have to pay the money back, to investors in these funds and that sort of thing. So we picked up a bunch. So I think closing wise, this will probably be a record month. We'll close on, gosh, at least six, probably a couple more. And these deals come from a variety of sources. So some were through paper stacks, some were through other sources. And what do I mean by other sources? Well, one of them that we're just waiting on a title report and then we'll fund it because I don't think there's going to be any problems there is a deal in Missouri. And it was brought to me by a client of mine. She's in the mentorship level of our program. And she had somebody that, they know what she does and they brought her a deal. And it was a deal that she wasn't ready to quite take on herself. So being a smart investor, she didn't just pass it and go, "No, I can't do it." She said, "No, I'll get it taken care of for you." So she's making a fee in there, which is great. We've talked about fee income and things like that. So she's doing that. So that's what I call special inventory, right? That's this other inventory that comes to me simply from being around and training people and things like that. But again, it just shows you the multitude of ways when you're in this business and you let people know it things happen, right? So now she's got this deal. She'll make a little bit of money, and that's all good. I've got another deal that came to me from, I don't know if you remember Eugene. Uh, he, we met him years ago, went to training courses that we did, Dwayne. And
Yeah.
I don't want to get his
Oh,
last
yeah.
name and all that stuff, but he's out in California and he built up a pretty nice portfolio, but notes is not his main field. It's just an investment that he does. He's in the high tech industry. But he had a deal he's held for quite some time, and in fact, as I started looking at it, it's one of those deals like, oh yeah, 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 yeah. He got this back a while. I'm trying to find the date. He got this deal back a while ago, and now he just, he's ready to sell it. He's made some good money on it, and he's like, you know what? I've got a note here that I think I want to sell, and came to me first. And again, he's a guy who's been with me for 4 or 5 years, and sure, I presented it to everybody on I think on a Wednesday night, and yeah, got another member in our elite program who I'm going to partner with on that deal as well.
You bring up a good point, especially, the listeners and calls that I get, and they say, where can I find these deals? And I always tell everybody, get involved. I mean, whether you have a RIA group, whether you have some type of business development group, there's plenty of conferences that are out and about. And get involved, get engaged, go to these groups and start creating content for yourself, and just be able to be out in meeting with people. That's where you're going to start getting these contacts, and
Hmm.
you're going to find people that have inventory. Now, make sure you know what you're talking about, because the minute you sound like you don't, people that are selling these notes, they're gonna see right through it and say, "Ah, the guy really doesn't know. He's just a broker," and they can read that. So make sure you're educated enough and asking the proper questions.
Hmm.
Um, when you're talking to these people, because the first, what's the old saying? First impression is best. And
Hmm.
so, given that first impression that or that you could be a source is going to be beneficial to you. Let's say you go down the road and you see this person again 3 months later, they're going to be kind of more standoffish because you didn't know what you were talking about the first time, but now you may. But just, cross the T's, dot the I's before you start talking to somebody about this business if you've never been in it.
Yeah, it's as great as high tech is, man. High touch has also got to be with it. High tech, high touch, and what I mean by that is that grassroots network development that you're talking about. A third deal that we just closed on came to me. There was a person who I bought from stuff in the past, and then he found out that I was a direct buyer. And so he said, "Hey, I've got a deal here. Just came direct to me," and we closed that deal a couple of days ago as well. So, which leads up to the topic I wanted to talk today about, which is how do you close these deals? What does a note closing look like? Because it's very different than a real estate closing, and most people are familiar with the real estate closing, but not a note closing. And there are differences. Note closings certainly much easier, certainly can be much quicker, with less contingencies on things, unless you want to add contingencies on there. Everything today is really done online for the most part. Sometimes in certain counties, you need what they call a wet signature still. So, we'll have a closing where we see the documents, wire the funds, and then they'll send the original documents. So you have the wet copy, so to speak. And a lot of times you got to mail that into mostly smaller counties, that don't do e-records and stuff yet. So I thought I would break that down for everybody today. And you know me, I like to break it down to simplicity. So, in closing on deals, I think the easiest way to think about it is you've got essentially two different types of closings. You can do a more formal closing, I'll call it, and that's usually through an escrow account.
You may want to make that
And
noise.
yeah, I'm gonna take care of that. Okay, so there's more of a formal closing process, and that's more on the traditional side, like a real estate closing, where you have a third party, either attorney or you have a title company or escrow company that is going to make sure all the documents are there. Your money's going to be held by a third party until everything is signed and everything is released. And believe it or not, that is newer to the industry than the next method, which is really nothing more than what we still call an in-house closing is what we typically refer that as an in-house closing. And that means basically we're not going through a formal escrow and paying attorneys or servicing companies to handle the closing. And now there's, as always, there's degrees of this, right? So you can do an in-house with an escrow, that sort of thing. But I mean, if we had to break it down, you got a formal closing, it's going to cost a little bit of money. You have a third party. The parties feel better protected though in a formal closing. Because your money is not going to be released without your authorization, and you're not going to give the authorization until they sign the documents, right? So a closing happens, what? You get the documents, so you own the asset, and they get the money. So we've got this crossover here, and if there's trust involved, great. If there's two parties that don't know each other, think about this. If you're buying a note for 50 grand and you're buying it from Joe Smith, and you don't know Joe Smith. You're going to send Joe Smith $50,000 and then just, now don't forget, Joe, to send me my paperwork, you know, and
That's gonna happen.
that's how we used to do it. There was
Yeah,
no other way to
yeah.
do it when we started this business 30 something years ago. There was no other way to do it. Escrow companies didn't know this business. They didn't know what the hell was going on. And you had to have a lot of trust to do deals like that. And of course, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have electronic signature. We didn't have any of that. We had manila folders, with formal documents in it that you would sit around and sort through and make sure everything is there. You didn't have courthouses that were online. So you
Trust
had to
and sit by
physically
the
go to the
mailbox.
courthouse. What's
You
that?
have to trust and sit by the mailbox.
100%. So it was kind of a weird thing, but that's what you did. And these days, obviously, people are less comfortable with doing that. So do a formal closing. There's nothing wrong with doing a formal closing. Now, paper stack's a good example of that. So paper stack, I'm going to show you kind of the background on here. This is my feed, if you will. So you can see there's 4 deals, as I said, in the process of closing that we have on paper stack, and then the other 2 are outside of paper stack through the special inventory here. And so that's kind of what it looks like as I'm going through a closing with the paper stack process here. And you can see we're pretty close on a lot of these. This one's 97% of the way there. So this one's essentially closed, but I'll show you the process that they have here. You start to go through and it guides you through the whole process, but you'll notice that when we wire the money's held in escrow, okay? And it won't be released until they sign the documents, as I said. So the seller has to ship the collateral to an auditor. The auditor makes sure that everything is there for us. And then they upload those documents, and I look at them and I say, okay, got it. Everything is there. They're verifying everything is there. I sign off on that saying documents are there. I authorize the release of the funds once they sign the other documents. And then you can see further down, sellers executed the assignment, the launch, the quitclaim deed. They had a customized quitclaim deed, which I had to approve on there. Approve that. Then the seller signs the disbursement saying, hey, I've delivered everything. They've okayed it. So release the funds. And then the auditor, you can see on this one, the auditor is now shipping the collateral to me. So I'll have the actual copies of everything in my hand in my file folders here in the office, and I'm just waiting on this deal. This deal's done. All the paperwork is done. It said 97% because I haven't received the shipment yet from FedEx for the buyer, which I'll probably get today. Perfect. That's it. That's a formal closing. We're protected the whole way through the process. Now, that does cost money. It costs money on the buyer side and the seller side, but there's a protectionary feature that most people are comfortable with. If you're buying a deal outside a trading platform like PaperStack, you can still do a formal closing. You just hire a local attorney, a local title company that can handle the transaction for you. A local title company probably will, well, they definitely will not create the documents for you, but they will handle the transaction, where an attorney would create the documents for you. The one we did on one of the special inventories we just closed on. The buyer, or sorry, the seller of the note has an attorney that created the note. I said, great. Have her attorney draw up the paperwork for the quitclaim deed, for the allonge and the assignment. I'll just review them and sign them. So she did that. She paid for that. And I sent the money to the broker who I know and trust. So we didn't have escrow fees or anything like that. I just sent it to him and I said, once we get everything, then you can send her the money, and keep your fee and all that sort of stuff. So different type of closing. In that one, we did more of a hybrid where, yes, we still had an attorney, but we didn't have escrow. Why didn't I have escrow? I know and trust the broker who brought me that deal. So I sent the money to him, as did my partner on that deal under my direction. No problem. And he knew not to release it until everything was signed. So everything's been signed now. I have all the documents. All I got to do is record them, and we formally close out the whole thing. In-house closings are still common when you're buying seller financed self-serviced notes. What self-servicing means is that there's no third party licensed and bonded like FCI, like Madison, like Allied. All these companies Dwayne and I know and spend time with at conventions and things like that. We know these people. They're licensed and bonded. Their companies are in every state, and they collect the payments. They interface with the borrower. We don't. They collect the payments. They handle the tax forms. They do all the formalities. They follow up on late fees, that sort of thing. That's a professionally serviced loan. The loans that we buy and hold, we will 99.9% of the time have a third party servicing company handling all of that. Much easier way to go, and it's cost effective, 15 to 30 bucks a month, which they take out of the monthly fee. But when you have a seller who creates a note and simply seller finances it, they don't have a third party. They don't even know they exist. A lot of times, like this deal we just did in Wisconsin, I was just talking about. Uh, Seller finance, this is the one where the lady had her own attorney, drew up the paperwork we just closed on. Great deal. Um, the she's just been collecting the payments. She lives down the street from where the borrower is. The borrower basically just mails her a check. Okay. So there is no third party there. As I'm buying that note, I told you how we handled the closing, had our attorney draw the paperwork, no escrow because I just sent it to the broker. But now we're going to be moving that note to a servicing company. And once again, servicing companies will take that over and everything else. So with those type of notes, the servicing companies oftentimes will not board those loans unless it can be proven as to what's been paid, what's the balance, what balance is, and what the social security number is of the borrower. Now you might think, why would we need the social security number of the borrower? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The money the borrower pays in the form of interest on that loan is tax deductible. If they want to write it off, we got to send tax forms to the borrower as to how much they've paid in interest. And also we get tax forms or have to create our own tax forms that show how much interest that we made and pay taxes on it. So we have to report to the IRS. So the little wrinkle right now in the Wisconsin deal is that the former note owner and the borrower started butting heads a couple months ago.
Ooh,
and they're not talking to each other.
Gonna be hard to get a social security number now.
Well, the note owner should already have it. She's owned this note for 7 years,
Yeah. Well, I'm
doesn't
taking
have
it she doesn't.
it. Apparently doesn't have it.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. Um, so we can't get it boarded, right? So what do we do? Closed on it. And if I have to self-service it for a period of time, that's what we'll do. And then I will have I'll eventually talk with her and get the social security number and explain why she wants to have that so she can write off all of this. And there's some other things to the story here. But circling back, so how do we close a deal such as that? How do I close a deal from my client, Eugene, who's selling a note? How do I close the other deal with the other client of mine who's brokering a deal from the people who brought her things? We're going to do what I call an in-house closing. Okay. So the one, for example, with Eugene. Okay. So in Eugene's note, it's the type of note that we call a contract for deed. Okay, and this one trips some people up. It's not a mortgage. It's not a deed of trust. It's called a contract for deed, also known as agreement for deed or land contract. Okay, and the agreement on that one is that the note owner gets the formal title to the property, the legal title to the property until paid in full. Okay, so the occupant living in the property doesn't have formal ownership of the property, but rather has an equitable entitlement to the property, but can get full title to the property if they what? Pay it off in full. Okay, very simple. So that's what we have. So in a contract like that, when we buy this from Eugene, Eugene has to sign it over to us. So what does he have to sign over to us? He has to sign over the note, the beneficial interest in the contract for deed, and the quitclaim deed. So three instruments have to be transferred. So what the formal closing looks like is just that. We entered a purchase and sale agreement, which I created. Both parties signed on that. All parties, I should say, because again, I'm partnering on that deal with one of my elite clients. In fact, my elite client, and I crossed out their name here. That's why the X's are there. Okay. But my client, my elite client, is going to own 90% of this note. I'm going to own simply 10% of this note. I'm paying 10% of the cost. My elite client's paying 90% of the cost. They get 90% of the payment. I get 10% of the payment. That's fair. That's the right way to do it. That's how I partner with my elite clients.
Plus,
So
you're doing all the
go ahead.
work. Plus, you're doing all the work.
Oh yeah. Plus, I found not only extra work in this case, right? Because not only did I find the deal, present the deal, everything else, gathered all the documents on the deal, but I also created all the paperwork to buy the deal, the purchase and sale agreement, and the note. So this is the old school way of closing stuff. It's in house. It's like I don't need an attorney to write up in a launch. You're looking at a launch. Now, for those who are just listening to this on the podcast, I'll describe this for you. If you want to see the full video, you can go on the YouTube channel and find the Watercooler Wednesdays there as well, with my tip of the day and everything else. But let me describe it to you. In fact, let me read the entire allonge to you. What? Yeah. It says, for good and valuable consideration, the undersigned is hereby signed, transfer, endorse, negotiate, and set over to make payable to the order of me and my partner and our addresses. The promissory note, a true correct copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein. The assignment, transfer, endorsement, negotiation, setting the promissory note is made without recourse or without warranty, date, signature. That is the entire launch. It's very simple, everybody. It's a one paragraph document. That transfers the note over to me. I don't need an attorney. I don't need to pay an attorney to do that. It's a template. It's easy. It's done. Okay, that's part one. But they also have to what? assign the interest that they have in the security agreements. The security agreement in this case is the contract for deed, right? Not a mortgage, it's a contract for deed. So once again, very simple, one-page document. Okay, it's coming from the seller, who's using, by the way, a self-directed 401k trust, everybody, which is a great, great way to do it. He's not paying any taxes on that. Well trained. He's been a long time client of mine. So the seller's a client of mine. He's selling it to who? To us. It breaks all of that down, talks about who the note is. Again, it's a one pager, and then the seller simply signs that one with a notary. So now we've got the note, we've got the beneficial interest, our security instrument in the property. But as I said, in this case, we also get title to the property. So title to the property is simply done with a quitclaim deed. Now, I'm not showing you the actual quitclaim deed from them to us in this case, which I have created, but this is the one that my buyer got. Okay, very simple. And again, this is a two-pager with an addendum that has the legal description. That's it. That's the quitclaim deed. I make sure that that's proper in every county. There's templates that you can download for that. That's the whole file, by the way, all the documents you mentioned, Dwayne, that I go through for the borrower, for my partner. And so I go through all these deals in detail. Even though, again, the seller's a client of mine, I know I helped him get in this deal, but I want to go back. I want to make sure everything is there. And then I present that to my elite client. So those three documents that I just showed you, that has to be signed. And if you were sharp, you may have noticed for those watching this that there was no place for me, there was no place for my elite partner to sign. Only the seller signs. So I create the documents, I get them to the seller. You need to get those signed. Some require notary, some don't. Get them back to us. In this case, we're going to wire the money right to his 401k account because I know and trust him. And we'll have copies of the documentation that are signed. And then he is going to ship me the uh, formal documents. And that's a closing. That's it. So can we do these in-house? Yes, you can. Is that the right way to do it every time? Didn't say that. I said there's alternatives. You can do a formal closing with escrow. You can do an in-house without it or some kind of hybrid.
Listen, you were talking about fee income, and we talk about that regularly. So people that are listening that are looking to create fee income, I would say one, it's a good way to start if you're looking to create some cash flow. You agree, right?
Yeah.
So what's that? What are you typically seeing right now? I know it depends on the size of the deal, but typically you're probably seeing 2,500 to 4,500 for fee income off of a transaction. Would that be accurate?
It does depend on the size of the deal and the motivation of the seller
Sure,
and
sure,
the
sure.
negotiation skills.
But
So that
typically
does,
across the board, if somebody
yeah.
said, "Hey, I really want to get into this. I need to make some money. What can I expect from that?" Is that typically what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, the other way to look at it, yes, is the quick answer. The other way to look at it is 3 to 6% of purchase price,
Right.
almost like a real estate commission. It's right in those numbers. Um, I don't like to use percentages on deals, but if you're looking for a starting point in negotiation, that's what it should be.
That's right.
Um, People who, unless you're just helping out a friend and you get put a fee in there for less than $500, well, then why do it? Um, you know, Especially if you've had to go out and find the deal. So when it comes to fee income, if you're paying for leads and things like that, you've got to adjust that into your business model and charge a better fee. If it just, is coming to you at no cost and you're helping out somebody or you're establishing a name at a club or something like that as the go-to person for note sellers, then you can take a little bit of less of a
I
fee.
think I think what we'll do is we'll do an episode of what that looks like, what that talk off is, what someone needs to do for some because I get calls, people saying, "Hey, I'm trying to create fee income. What's that look like?" and all. And so I would bet some of the listeners would find that helpful. Maybe we can make a lesson on that one time.
Sure. And the other thing you have to have it's easier if you have a buyer. So once
Sure.
again, we're a direct buyer. So if you
Yeah.
find somebody who wants to sell a note, you can go right to kevinshortell.com and click on sell a note, fill out that information, and we'll make an offer. And it'll be quick. And especially in single notes, you send that in, we can get an offer back to you the next day. If you've got a big portfolio or something like that,
Going to take longer for
make it
sure.
easier for buyers to look at. Don't just send a spreadsheet and say, "Hey, let me know what you think." Do a little write up. Do a little, "Hey, here's what we got. Here's where the genesis of where this came from. Here's about what the notes do." And if you want to sell a note, make it attractive for somebody to want to buy. Don't hand somebody a homework assignment.
Yeah.
You basically, so on a one note, we've broken down here. Here's the bottom line information I need to know to make an offer. Now, will that be the final offer? Maybe, maybe not, because this offer is still subject to further due diligence. But we have to get going. You find a deal. What's it worth? What would you pay for it? Are we in the ballpark? If we're in the ballpark, okay, now let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's see what's good about your note that you created. Let's see what's bad about the note that you created, and then we can modify it from there. But so if you're looking to sell a note or to make money, a fee, if you will, for somebody selling a note, we'll, send it in. We'll buy it. Yeah.
So just for you, the listener, I would tell you, and to reiterate what Kevin said, give us some information about the note. So we have people that send a whole tape of notes, 16, 18 assets, and hey, which one do you want to buy? Well, it takes a time to go through these assets to really make a deciding factor of whether it's a good deal or not. If you're just trying to throw a deal up against the wall and see if it'll stick and if we'll bite, and with no information, it's going to take us a lot longer to get back to you to let you know whether we want to buy it or not.
Yeah.
And so do yourself a favor. You're trying to create fee income, do some work for that, not just get a list of assets that you're looking to sell because it's been shopped 10 other different places and you received it because somebody's sending it to you, and you really have no idea what the notes look like. Hey, I don't know if they're good, they're bad. I just want to send it to you to see if you'll buy it. Well, it's probably going to be a little while before we get back to you just because there's no information. There's no information whatsoever of any deal. Hey, these number one, number six, number 13 looks really good. These are ones I'd focus on. Let me tell you why. Other ones are decent, but these are the three that I'd pick out. And so any information that you can give us to help speed that up, it's going to be a lot better for you because then we can close a lot faster and then you can collect your fee.
Well, Dwayne, you work with people on mindset as well through your Huddle for Success platform.
Correct.
And this is one of these mindset issues. Are you selling a note or are you showing an opportunity for somebody?
I'm showing somebody an opportunity.
Exactly. If
No
you're
question.
just selling a note, you're not putting anything into it. What do you expect to get paid? And how quick is someone going to respond versus here's a great opportunity and why? Let me break it down for you. Boom. That's that is different than just the mindset of I'm just selling a note. No, I'm offering somebody a huge opportunity. That's what I'm doing. And if I can't compel you to take a look at it, then that's on me. It should be something that screams like, "Hey man, this is a good deal. Let me know. I'm breaking it
Yeah.
down for you and make it simple because I got other people I got to show it to." Then that's a difference. Now, one could argue that is selling. I get it, but mentality wise, get out of I'm just trying to sell a note and broker and get a fee to, man, I'm showing a great opportunity for somebody here. I'm giving somebody a great
And we have
chance to.
seen, over the years when we were doing events, somebody would come up to us at break time and say, "Hey, I want to, will you guys buy this deal?" Well, okay, tell me about it. Well, I think it's a four-bedroom, two. I'm not really sure what it is,
Mhm.
and I'm not really sure the location, but it's a friend of a friend, and They want 150,000. Well, what's it worth? Well, I'm not really sure, but I know they want to sell. I mean, that do your homework. If
Yeah.
you're wanting to get paid, do your homework. No one's going to pay you. So I always say money is a result, not a cause. You
Yeah.
have to create the cause to make money. And so you're going to have to do a little bit of homework. And, you know, I guess I ramp about it a little bit just because we see it a lot and people are expecting a decision right now and hey, I need to make money right now, but that's all fine and good, but they're not willing to do the due diligence of letting us know what, what is good and what's not good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. I agree. Um, Closing is a big part of it, everybody, and that's important part of it. Knowing how to handle these documents and not be scared of these documents. And you know, I don't. I briefly showed for those who are just listening. I briefly showed inside a folder and all the documents that are there that I go through. I don't read every word of every document. I don't have to. I did at one point in time read every word of a promissory note. I did at one point in time read every word of a deed. I did at one point in time. So I know now where to go, and that's how I'm able to peruse through these a lot quicker than the average person simply because I've looked at enough of them. I know what to look for. I know the certain clauses that need to be there. And you've seen it, Dwayne, where I go, no, look what this one says, or that one's missing this. Did you notice that? That had, and it's those little key things, that you can pick in that end up being big deals. So yes, there's paperwork involved in this, but you become proficient at it by
Yeah,
through practice.
once you get an idea like where you are more proficient at it, that really is the easiest part.
Mhm.
Finding out, doing the due diligence of the deal, finding the deal. I mean, that the paperwork really becomes the easiest part of it all.
Yeah. And I tell you, you've heard me say this forever. It's numbers and story, numbers and story. That's how you master this business. That's why that deal, um, I don't want to go too far into it, but that deal in Wisconsin that I'm closing on where former note owner and borrower are butting heads, I know the whole story. I know the whole background. The lady who ends up owning the note, she had a partner, and the partner got a little bit older and had to power of attorney it over to her. 2 months later, she sold it. The borrower came to her, wanted to make some changes to the note. Basically, she wanted to borrow against the property. Well, she can't borrow against the property because she's not on the title, to the property. So that's where they started really butting heads. I got a whole solution for that. I had no problem with that. I'll convert that contract for deed into a note and a mortgage, no problemo, and I will motivate her to do that, and she'll pay for it. To have it converted over because she wants a loan for her small business, man. It's all about solutions. It's all about that. But the only way I know that is through knowing the story. So if I'm armed with knowledge from the documentation that you get from all of these other sources, then all you have to do is provide the solution. And that enables me to do deals like that. I think most people, if they found out that they couldn't board that loan professionally,
They
they
would
might
walk
back
away.
out of the deal. They
No
just
question.
don't know what to do. I don't want to service a loan. I don't want to do all that. It's like, I'm not going to service the loan. I'm going to collect one payment and then I'm going to have a real nice conversation. She's going to be enthusiastic and boom, we're going to move on. And who knows, she might even do a cash out refi. We'll see what happens, but I'll bring that up on other episodes. So thanks everybody for tuning in to another Water Cooler Wednesday. We appreciate it. Are we having one next week? No, we're well into the season at that point, right?
Next week we'll have one next week, but that'll be it.
Okay, yeah, 17th. Oh no, next week the 10th.
No,
Yeah,
we have next
and
week and the
yeah, we had a
week
couple more.
after. Yeah, two
Yeah,
more. Yeah,
yeah, we had a couple more before Christmas. Beautiful. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Dwayne. I do appreciate it, and
absolutely.
everybody, just go to kevinshortell.com, learn more. If you want to get involved in the note business, we've got plenty of ways to do that. Anything from just education to mentorship to complete elite partnership with me. So check it out, kevinshortell.com. Thanks again, everybody. Have a good one.